Microservice GTS user training service. So to start, I've listed an Excel sheet of all the tasks I've done. So first I cloned the repository, created the required tables and database. I used Maven to build my project and ran jar file. Then I explored the code base, used identity service to get access, and I tested all the APIs. Then I submitted the jar file to the QA team, and I got some bugs. I'm working on them. Two of them are pending. The get request is missing output for that. So GTS user training service is basically about like the microservice to collect all the required training details like the start date, the end date, the training ID, the trainer ID, and other details. This is this is the UX page which stores all the required details for the trainer and the training titles. Then this is the API design. So for post, we have like applying for training. You can apply for training with various like training offer ID, training ID, status, start date, end date, and etc. Then there are various error messages to check if the training offer ID is valid or invalid. Then we can modify the data with the different data things like time and all in the put request. Then in the get request, we can like retrieve the data. This is not working currently this part, but the error parts are working, like if checking the ID is invalid or valid. Then the delete part, to delete any specific training data, we can using user ID or other basic offer ID, you can delete the request. Let me show the DB design. This is for GTS user payments. This tracks the payment details, if it's paid or not paid, and the currency type and all. This for the tables I created, and this was the main table GTS user trainings, which was a training ID, trainee ID, offer ID, offer status, start date, end date, fees payment, start time, end time, and period in hour, training period in hour, subscribe date, completed date, and applied date. All of these are updated by the postman when you like send request. This is the post request. So when you send any request, it's updated or applied, and just like you can check if the ID is invalid, or like I put -1 on here, so it's invalid. If training offer ID doesn't exist, you can like in case the training offer ID is invalid. Then to modify a certain request, update training, change the training in progress status. It's successfully updated. Same ID checks over here is also available. Then in the get request, currently retrieving the data is not working. I'm working on the fixing the bug, but the ID invalid parts are fixed. The training ID is invalid. It's -1. And finally, to delete the request, successful. I'll explain the code this now. So in the main, we have the cache manager. This is for the Redis cache manager. It manages the user token. Same with the local config. It manages the local cache of the Redis cache with the inline data structure to manage the user tokens. And the controller, this maps all the post, put, update requests, and delete requests. So any request sent in the postman, this will be the file which will be run first, and it maps like all the API URLs and all the checks if it's null or not, invalid or something. Then the email service, this is used to send, this has an email template to send and print the certificates for the email. And this manages the users. It returns the user ID, offer ID, etc. In the entities folder, we have city entity, country entity. These basically are getter and setter methods to return the country ID from the database. Same with currency, skill, state, training entity, training of entity, and even for average user rating, and payments, personal, user token, and video entity. And these are the various exception files, application exception, conflict exception. And here I have defined like all the request HTTP return statements, like bad request should be 400, and not found would be not four, not found. These are defined based on the requirements. And one more thing I added was the conflict exception as required with the QA team. Then ID not found exception, user training handled exception. And this was the model, this user training model, which has a lot of return and setter methods, return and setter methods to return all the details from the database. This is for authentication. It targets to the required website upon authenticating. And these are the SQL repository commands to directly access the database using the select command for various columns. Then the security folder, we have authorization filter. This is to authenticate and authorize the user based on the bearer token. User principal is also the similar type. It's part of the security folder to authorize and authenticate the user. And web security for authenticating the web. And services, we have like various services like to like manage the service and return the user required details. In utility, we have this is for the certificate, generating the certificate will be generated as a PDF file based on the template provided, certificate of completion. And this is the JSON response model, so just status code which returns if it's okay or bad. Then JW utility, this is the various project skills, response util.java for invalid input. This is returned like if the formatting is not correct in the Postman sending. Then SQL datetime as training util, user util Java is also returns the required details and video utils finally. This is the main function, starting point of the microservice. Then PDF Amazon, this is for sending the PDF and using the AWS. And this is the Lambda handle for the AWS. Then this is the email template. Then the applications or properties has all the required details like the database URL, password, and mail service from which the email will be sent, AWS access key, and other details. And in the pom.xml, we have all the required dependencies like Spring Security, Spring Framework, etc. Yeah, that's about it.